Welcome, everybody, to Books with Cooks,
a podcast for bookies and foodies.
Hi, I'm Jess.
And I'm Alex.
And we're two cousins
who are also best friends
who love to read.
Yeah.
And I love to cook.
And I cook to survive.
We'll be reviewing, analyzing,
sometimes overanalyzing,
and discussing the books we're currently reading, as well as new
and old
recipes from our kitchen to yours. By the way, we're real people
with real families.
So you may hear cats,
dogs,
birds,
babies,
and husbands.
So enjoy that bonus material. Now let's get booking
and have a tasty chat. If you're just tuning in, we will be doing a segment here every episode on Books with Cooks podcast called Word of the Day, where we will give you the word of the day. Typically, we will incorporate the word during the episode to add a little fun challenge and to help spice up your language as well as our own. So you may even hear this word again in future episodes. And we encourage our listeners to use these words in your daily conversations with us on our socials and forum on our website. But make sure you stay tuned at the end of this episode and future episodes when we give out our Sassy Spatula Award to whoever correctly uses the word in conversation this episode. So the word of the days will come from the Word of the Day, or rather the Word a Day vocabulary workbook by your girl, Francine Puckley.
The Pucks.
Franny Puck. Franny the Pucks. So shout out to you, Franny. All right. Your book, it's pretty good. All right. It's pretty good. So today's word of the day is abecedarian. ABECDARIAN. I don't know why I spelled it like that, but that's how it's spelled. Pronunciation is ABC, like the alphabet, dare, like truth or dare, Ian, like Uncle Ian. abecedarian. Definition: a beginner, someone just learning the rudiments of a task, skill, job, etc. Example: well, let's come up with some examples of the fly, Alex, for this first episode. Let's give them a taste.
All right. So we did read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hooves. So let's incorporate some of that into our examples. I would go out on a limb and say Lily was an abecedarian by opening up a flower shop for the first time.
Yes, she certainly was, Alex. You are absolutely correct. Lily was also an abecedarian with Atlas, being a girlfriend for the first time.
Yes. Ryle, in turn, was an abecedarian in his relationship with Lily because he had never been in a relationship before, despite being well into his 20s.
Correct. Another red flag.
Yes.
abecedarian also would come into terms with Ryle being an abecedarian when it comes to not being a creep sometimes, maybe once or twice in this novel.
Alyssa and Marshall are abecedarians in Parenthood, new parents for the first time.
Ooh. And Lily and Ryle at the end of this book, spoiler alert, are also abecedarians when it comes to raising a newborn child.
Yeah.
All right. So I think you got some examples there. Let's give you a little trivia. In the future, I'm going to be posting this maybe to TikTok, and Alex may be posting it to some Instagram or some of our socials. We'll extend the trivia and a make it stick activity for you guys to engage with, so we can make it stick. Sounds pretty good. But the trivia I will include for this one, since it's our first go from the book, from medieval Latin, abecedarium. It refers to the initial knowledge, or ABCs rather, of a skill or task. It's also a poetic form in which a line or stanza begins with the first letter of the alphabet, and subsequent lines or stanzas begin with the successive letters of the alphabet.
That's cool.
So it's very interesting. So I guess you could say abecedarian goes back to abecedarians of language. Haha.
Oh God, no. Timeout. Just kidding. I'm just
Oh
kidding.
no, my first time out. Hope I don't get any more. All right, so for our make it stick activity for this word for this week, or for this episode rather, why don't you give us your suggestions for two abecedarian podcasters starting out in just one sentence? Send us your replies to this on our socials, on our forum on our webpage, or email us at bookswithcooks@gmail.com.
And let's make it stick.
As our title indicates, we are all about booking and cooking. So we are going to be incorporating an ingredient of the day.
Every episode will select an ingredient from a food mentioned in the current book.
This week's ingredient is chocolate chips, inspired by Atlas's chocolate chip cookies that he makes for Lily in chapter 11.
We'll make something using that ingredient to discuss in our side dish sode, which will air on Thursday.
So send us your recipe suggestions, and we may feature them in the next episode and possibly even make them ourselves.
And always remember to credit your sources.
Sources!
Before we get into our book discussion, we want to include some trigger warnings. This book and the following discussion will include topics of domestic violence, sexual violence, and attempted rape.
Also, just be aware that there will be cursing and spoilers. So, if that's something that you're sensitive to, or if you haven't read the book, you may want to skip this episode and come back to it in the future.
Finally, as we are ABC Darian podcasters, point to Alex, please forgive
Not.
any technical issues in this episode.
We are still learning, but we promise that Alex will not get that point and that we are dedicated to improving with experience.
I will get that point.
Okay, so the book we're starting with is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. We thought it would be nice to get to know the author a bit. Colleen Hoover, or as we like to call her, the Hooves, or Colleen the Hooves, or Colleen, is a New York Times best-selling author. Most of her novels are either new or young adult contemporary romances, including It Ends With Us, which also explores the unfortunate circumstances of when love goes sour. The Hooves has opened up about how her personal experiences inspired her to write this novel. As a child, Colleen's father was abusive towards her mother. And in the note from the author at the end of the book, she recalls her earliest memory from the age of 2.5, when her father threw a TV at her mother and knocked her down. Colleen states that her mother ultimately made the decision to divorce her father before Colleen turned 3 years old.
Colleen also reflects that her father was never abusive towards her or her sisters, despite the numerous acts of violence against her mother, and that she only has positive memories of him following that incident. Colleen also discloses that she struggled to understand her mother for many years, as she couldn't understand how someone so strong could stay in a volatile situation for as long as she did. However, after speaking with her mother, Colleen was able to develop a better understanding of the intricacies of abusive relationships and wanted to write a different kind of novel, one for all of the women and men out there who have been in her mother's position before. That being said, if you or someone you know is involved in an abusive relationship, please know that you are not alone and that there is help available.
You can call or you can text the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1 800 799 7233 for more information on the resources available to you. We will also include this information on our Instagram account at bookswithcooks_podcast.
It Ends With Us is the story of a young woman named Lily Bloom who has a chance encounter with a neurosurgeon named Ryle Kincaid on a rooftop in Boston on the night of her father's funeral. Lily and Ryle briefly get to know one another until Ryle is called away to the hospital without sharing contact information. 6 months later, Lily is opening up her own floral shop, a dream of hers since she was young, when she meets Alyssa Kincaid, an outgoing woman with whom Lily forms a very quick friendship. Lily is injured while she and Alyssa are cleaning up her new storefront, so Alyssa calls her brother, who happens to be Ryle.
Dun, dun, dun. Then the story explores the highest and lowest points of their relationship, sometimes taking on a violent nature. The story is juxtaposed with journal entries in the form of letters to Ellen DeGeneres, whose talk show helped Lily escape the turbulence of her childhood. The letters transport readers to Lily's teenage years as she falls in love for the first time with Atlas Corrigan, a homeless boy at her high school with a troubled past. Together, Lily and Atlas navigate first love while mutually coping with their respective abusive family units. Years later, Lily and Atlas are reunited in Boston shortly after Lily's relationship with Ryle has begun to blossom.
So let's start with the title. What do you think the title means?
So, I mean, I gotta say, it ends with us really annoyed me when I first started reading it because I was like, should be it starts with us. What is that part two?
Hmm.
Um, but obviously, like when I got to the end, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's why. So now I kind of like the title. I feel like the title actually really goes well to circle back with everything to the book.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it means spoiler alert, but I think it means it ends with us. The abuse ends here. It's not going to continue with her and her daughter. She won't allow it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think that Colleen Hoover was going for, and what I actually really liked about the title was that this is the end of that cycle of abuse, and which is great. That's the best possible outcome for any
Yes. And I feel like
abusive household.
I feel like when she mentions at the end that was her situation. I feel like um she it ended when her mom left. So in the book she makes the mom not leave. So she had to give it some kind of a closure. So
Yeah,
she maybe closed it for herself, the hooves in
yeah,
there, the hoovy hooves.
yeah. Kind of found some closure for herself in her own personal life. Colleen Hoovies. Um,
So what do you think of Lily's letters to Ellen DeGeneres? Ellen DeGen. Was this an effective literary device to tell Lily and Atlas's story?
I liked the letters. I thought that they were effective. I did enjoy seeing Lily's past through the point of view of what was supposed to be a teenage Lily. I think we both agree that it didn't so much feel like reading a teenager's letters, but it was, I think, an engaging literary device to be able to tell that story. I do think that it was a little bit more engaging even than the narrative from the present day story.
Agreed. I got hooked as soon as the first letter was read. And I was like, oh, I need
Mm.
more on Atlas and Lily's situation.
Yeah.
I kept looking forward to the letters. So I liked the letters. They would be probably my favorite part of the book.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was very effective to
Mhm.
tell their story, but it leaves it off at the end where we do want more of their future story. So that's why I'm looking forward to the second part.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that the second book is going to follow, Lily's ongoing journey away from this relationship with Ryle and how she then can explore a new relationship, hopefully a healthy one with Atlas.
Yes.
And I
More
do think,
smiles without Ryle.
yes, yeah, definitely more smiles without Ryle. Um, and I'm curious to see how the relationship with Atlas unfolds.
Same.
But
Yeah.
I
And plus,
wonder.
he's a cook. We love that.
Yes, love a man who cooks.
Yes, we do. Especially books with cooks. We love a cook.
Yeah. I am kind of curious to see if we are going to get a little bit more backstory on Atlas in the sequel, and how that story is going to be conveyed as well. Um, in the first one, obviously, we are just talking about the letters to Ellen, and I'm curious to see if we're going to get some background, even like a little bit more background on Lily, and then even some background on Atlas. So
So
that's definitely
I
something to look
agree.
forward to.
Yes, and I like that we get Lily's background through the letters. I'm hoping in the second book of the series that we get Atlas's background or his perspective on his own background,
Yeah,
like why he was kicked out, what happened at home when he was a child. That would be great.
yeah,
So hopefully the Hooves delivers there and gives us
yeah.
some good story. Come on, Hooves. All right, we believe in you.
So, what were your initial thoughts about Ryle?
Ugh.
Yeah.
Um, I hate Ryle. I despised him. So
Hmm.
initially, I did not find him funny. I found him beating up the chair like a red flag for sure. I
Hmm.
found it disturbing, and I would have ran off that roof so fast.
Yeah.
The whole thing when the naked truths, the naked truth thing's cute until he was like, "Well, my naked truth is I want to, f you,"
Yeah.
and I would have just been like, "Well, bye, boy, bye." Like
That's the
that's
thing. I just don't I don't I think that Colleen wanted us to like Ryle. Like, I think she thought that he was like funny and charismatic, and I never felt that from him. I thought that he was creepy. I thought I agree
arrogant.
about, yeah, the beating up of the chair was super red flaggy in the beginning. And then just everything that followed. I mean, from him and like with what did he know her for 20 minutes, if that? And he was like, I want to fuck you. And
Yeah.
then later on, when he's literally at her doorstep on his knees begging her to have
Oh,
sex with him, I was
so
like,
pathetic.
I can't get past this. Like, it's so creepy and weird. I just, even when she meets him again for the first time after 6 months, she's like on the floor with a hurt ankle. I think it was fractured or something like that. And the first thing he's telling her is like, I still want to fuck you. And I'm like, dude, we get it. She's a hot lady. Like, can you think of something else? Like, you're supposed to be an
Right.
intelligent
She's
neurosurgeon.
a hot injured lady. Like, come on, bro. I'm sorry, but I did not connect to Ryle at all. He's the type of guy that I would have personally run from when I was
Yeah.
single. So, I found him arrogant and I just did not like him whatsoever. I mean, it seems like Lily would, from her past, want to run away from a guy like that. And she runs directly to him. And it's because he's so hot. Oh, he looks good in scrubs. Like, bro, who cares?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, really, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just think it also says something about Lily's character that like she did, I guess, find that charming, the stuff. And maybe this is just a personality difference that we have with Lily, but um why did she find that charming? She never really explained it, where she was just like, "Oh, haha, he wants to fuck me." You know.
Yeah.
Um it's and
Yeah.
I'm just
Keep swimming.
wondering.
Why you keep swimming in that pool? Like there's better pools, girl. Like there's wave pools, there's saltwater pools. I don't know. There's more exciting pools than the Ryle pool.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I don't
do
know. I
wish
just
that
didn't want to
Colleen.
dive into that pool.
Yeah, I wish, Colleen Hooves had made him more likable and more charming. I would have understood Lily a little bit better if she had made him like just a little bit more palatable in the beginning of the book. Because it was just hard for me to get on board with their relationship from the jump
Okay.
because I didn't like
I
him.
agree. And maybe others might have found something in him that they really liked or something. Maybe they weren't on the same track as us, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, you meet somebody, they tell you that, and then literally like 10 minutes when he's about to leave, he's like, I'm taking a picture. I don't even think he asks. I think he just
No, he
takes his phone
doesn't.
out and takes a picture of her.
Yeah.
And then to make it even creepier, later he
Yeah.
turns it into some kind of mural or canvas, and like that's
Yeah.
weird.
And it's hanging up in his sister's apartment. It's bizarre, and
Yeah.
she's, like, charmed by it, where I would be like, "Dude,
No,
that's freaking
run.
creepy as hell.
Yeah,
Like, I don't even
even
know
like,
you.
I liked I know.
Why
I
is my
liked
face
how subliminally, like when the person at the party at Alyssa's house was saying something along the lines of like, "Oh, look at this pixelated weird art. It's strange," Like it's
Yeah.
like kind of like in a relationship when you just don't see it, you're blinded by
Mm.
love and somebody or you're blinded by, the attraction or the excitement of it all. And like somebody an outsider can see it, but you can't. Like, "Hey, bro, this is creepy." Like
Yeah.
it's just like, "Oh, it's me." Ooh, like no, no. "Oh, Scrubs man has me on his wall." Like, that's weird. You met him once for 5 minutes, I don't know.
And,
Just
I
weird.
wonder, they never actually say whether Alyssa ever finds out that that is a picture of Lily that, like, he gave her, like, just from that one chance encounter on the rooftop before he got to know her and was in a like, does Alyssa ever find that out? I don't think so. But I'm
No,
curious how she would feel if he, like, revealed that to her later on. Would she think it's
but
creepy?
also, yeah, it wasn't in his bedroom, like, in the privacy of his own space. It was in her apartment. Like, did she say, "Oh, this is art," Or he was like,
Yeah.
"Look at this art I gave you as a gift." Like, that's even weirder. I don't know, maybe one day she'll be at your party. I
It's
don't
very
know.
weird.
Very
Very, very
strange
weird.
and very creepy, like stalker style, like the show You. Run,
Yeah. Yeah. Run far and fast.
run.
Um, so I know at some point we learn about Ryle's past. So we kind of pick up that this is a touchy topic for him at the beginning of the book when he is beating up the chair. It's because he had to treat a child who was shot by his sibling with a gun when it was not properly contained in the house. And then we later find out that Ryle, the same exact thing happened to him. He was the child that shot his brother. His brother ended up dying. He was on the floor holding his brother's brains in. This is what prompted him to become a neurosurgeon. Um, but do we think that this trauma excuses his behavior in any way?
Absolutely not. So I might be harsh in saying this because, yes, when he was telling his story, I thought of two kids, two little boys, and I was like, "Oh, that's terrible. That's awful." And the situation was awful. He had to watch his brother die. I mean, that's terrible. And he
Yeah.
shot him. He didn't
Yeah.
mean to, but that's horrible and horrifying. Definitely giving him PTSD.
Mhm.
Does it give him the right to push a woman down the stairs? Does it give him a right to attack and assault or rape a woman that he supposedly loves? Absolutely not. That's
Yeah.
inexcusable. I
Yeah.
don't care what the reasons behind it. I don't care about his past. That's his present, and that's how he's choosing to react. And you don't choose violence. You don't have to do that. I just think
Yeah.
it's. I just think it's awful, and I don't agree with it.
Yeah. No, I
I don't.
agree with you 100%. No trauma excuses behavior.
No.
Maybe it makes you empathize with him. Maybe you say, I feel bad for you. That does suck. And that's really difficult to cope with. But it doesn't give you the right to ever take that out on
Right.
someone else, especially in the form of violence or sexual violence. It doesn't
Exactly.
give you the right to just treat people how, you want. And I don't think he really like always intended to hurt as like a premeditation, although I know, that last incident seemed more premeditated, but the first couple. But what I'm thinking of specifically is after he pushes her down the stairs, that's when he discloses to Lily that this happened to him, and she forgives him because of this disclosure. And it makes me believe that she believes that it does excuse his behavior. Oh, well, he pushed me down the stairs because he had a traumatic, situation in his childhood. And I just don't know if a man who had done that to me was sitting across from me and he's like, please just listen to me. And his sister's telling her, please just listen to me. Um, if I could ever accept that. I think I would empathize. I'd probably feel bad, especially if this is somebody I care about. I'm really sorry that that happened to you, but you pushed me down a flight of stairs.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that's never going
Like,
to stop being a thing in my head.
you shouldn't ever have to be with someone who you have to walk on eggshells around. You should never have to fear for your safety with somebody that claims to love you because that's ridiculous. But also, yeah, okay, it's sad that the child him pulled a trigger that he shouldn't have pulled, but everything that Lily does shouldn't be a trigger now in
Yeah.
his life. It shouldn't cause him to react and overreact to certain things and act a certain way. And then, oh, it's justifiable though, because remember his past.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
he
know.
needs
I
therapy
think he
to work through that.
yeah, and everybody, not saying it to this extreme, but everybody has baggage,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be like every relationship somebody's going to be like, "Well, I have this baggage, so let me just punch you in the face real quick or throw you down a flight of stairs or there's a tree trunk, let me put your face in it just because I had a bad day." No.
Yeah.
That's not excusable. Like obviously if he really really loved her, he would work on him and he wouldn't be beating her or taking it out on her face and her body. And I don't know,
Yeah.
it doesn't sit right with me.
So, do you think that because she grew up in an abusive household with a father who, pretty severely abused her mother, that that kind of influenced her to accept his excuse? Because she kind of saw him differently from her dad in terms of she just thought her dad was a bad person, whether he had a bad background or not. We never find out, but here she is saying, oh, well, this happened to him. Now I understand him better and he can change. Um, Do you think if she didn't have that kind of background that she would have accepted that excuse? Or, do you think that there was any
Well,
type of influence?
I think Lily, I think we learned from her childhood through the Ellen letters. I think we learned that she's the type of person that when she sees something with a broken wing, so to speak,
Mm,
she wants to help repair it. With Atlas, she's seen him, he was in need of help. She wanted to fix him. Maybe with Ryle, she felt like she could fix him. Same thing because she could not fix her parents' situation. So she
mhm,
couldn't fix what was happening at home. So she tried to fix everything else and everyone else around her that needed it, or she wanted to be needed, or whatever the case may be.
mhm,
Um, so I think that if anything, growing up around an abusive household like that, it would have, caused her to notice the red flags and stuff. But in this case, it doesn't, So I'm not really sure if she notices them and it puts something in her head to be like, all right, well, I can change this person. I can fix this like I fixed
mhm.
Atlas or I helped
Yeah.
Atlas. I'm not really
Well,
sure.
I think that's the thing is that she did notice, the red flags. Not so much this, like she didn't see the beating of the chair as a red flag, like we kind of thought. But later on, like when he was hurting her, she did recognize it as, this is not acceptable behavior. This is bad. But I think because she felt for him differently than she felt for her dad, and because she couldn't look at it as objectively, um I think that it did kind of allow her to accept his excuse because she wanted to believe that he was different than her
S-
dad. She
Yes.
wanted to believe that this wasn't the same situation. Um and I just wonder if she hadn't had an abusive father, if she would have accepted this excuse. I think if she had a more stable father figure who was, loving and caring to her and her mother, I think she would have she would have taken his excuse and said, kind of similar to what we said, I'm really sorry that that happened to you, but that does not give you the right to hurt me, and it doesn't
Right.
excuse anything, and I'm not going to give you a second chance because of it.
So I
Um
feel like it's a two-part answer for that. So I feel like part of her, she was divided. Part of her, um, with her mom was an outsider looking in a way.
mhm,
So she was able to be like, why isn't she walking away? Just like us as readers, we were like, why isn't Lily walking away? Because
mhm.
she would notice these things and she would say, oh, I should leave. I should never let this guy talk to me again. But she always would. She would always go back to him and she would let it happen again. She allowed it happening, to happen again.
Mhm,
Um, and then the other part of her was like, I'm becoming my mother. Oh, but she was in denial. Oh, I'm not becoming my mother. I'm not my mother. And then all of a sudden, I am my
mhm,
mother.
mhm,
So I think in a way, it helped her understand more of her mom.
mhm,
Maybe it helped her sympathize more with her mom instead of seeing her mom as like someone who isn't leaving. Why aren't you leaving? She was getting more of an understanding. Oh, I see why my mom didn't leave. So I guess
mhm,
that, maybe helped her draw closer with her mom. But we talked about this too. Like she has this opportunity, Hoover, the Hooves, she
mhm,
has an opportunity to, you know, present us with this awesome conversation of her and her mom having this heart to heart about a similar situation that Lily can now relate to personally on her own level. And we get a paragraph from the mother. So I'm hoping in the next one we get more from the mom about the mom's story, maybe. I'm not sure if we will. But I felt like I was left wanting more from that
yeah. I mean, we can talk about my opinion on this a little bit later when we, discuss writing style.
book
Um,
block.
but yeah, I mean, I did feel that that had a big factor on this is just the writing and the characters and what we were able to see, and um, we'll ziplock that for our later discussion.
That's good.
So Lily says there is no such thing as bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things. Do you agree with that?
So I agree and don't agree. I agree that sometimes there are people who aren't bad people that do bad things, make bad choices, make bad decisions, that in the moment maybe they're not thinking clearly or whatever the case. Like, for example, if somebody was hurting my kid, maybe I would do something that I wouldn't normally do to try to
Mhm.
protect my kid. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but in his case, Ryle is a bad person. Yes, he had a past, but he developed, and instead of choosing to make himself um grow from that, and be more. I mean, yes, he wanted to be a neurosurgeon so he can try to stop things like that, or try to help people in those situations because he couldn't help his brother. He felt helpless as a kid. But he could have bettered himself, or he didn't have to choose violence, with a
Mhm.
woman. I don't think that I don't think I agree with it when it comes to Ryle, if that makes sense.
Okay.
How do you feel?
I disagree. I do agree that there's no such thing as bad people. There's people that do bad things. To an extent, if we're gonna talk about like real evil people like Charles Manson or something like
Mm,
that, like I don't know if
oh,
they were, people that just did bad
that's
things. They
next
were,
level evil.
yeah. So, but when it comes to Ryle, I don't think he was a bad person. He, was good at his career. He did help people. He wasn't a bad son or brother. He wasn't a bad friend. He was a bad boyfriend and a bad husband. And it's funny because he kind of acknowledged that about himself.
At the
But
end.
he didn't do anything about it. So I do think that he made bad decisions. I think he definitely allowed bad impulses to drive him. I think that he can come back from it, and I think by the end of the book, we kinda get this idea that he wants to, whether it's to be better for his daughter or to be better for himself or Lily. He does seem to have some type of reckoning that says to him, "It's time to change. I need to do something about this. I can't sustain this for the rest of my life." Um, do
Right.
I think he's a great guy? No, I still think he's a creep. I still think he's, like, kind of an asshole,
And a
but
D bag.
but I don't think he's necessarily a bad person. I think there are redeeming qualities to Ryle. Um, we just don't really get to explore them as much as we see the bad, I think, because that was the main
Well,
focus of the book.
we got to see Ryle as a friend and as a brother. We got to see Ryle as a husband and a boyfriend. Now, in the second part, we're going to see him as a dad. And he definitely has a
Yeah.
turning point when the daughter's born and he thinks about it if it was on the other end and the boyfriend was doing something to hurt her. And I like that he makes, the grown up decision to be like, okay, yeah, this is what's right let's do what's right for the baby.
Yeah.
I was proud of him in that moment, if that makes sense. Not that I should be proud of him, but I was happy to see that.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. But I don't know how it's going to be. I mean, is he going to have triggers in the next one? I don't know, because people don't just change overnight, especially if they're violent. If they have triggers like that, I don't know. I don't know what
Yeah.
to expect. I think he's unpredictable
Hmm.
as it stands. So we'll have to see.
I personally don't think that he's likely to be violent with his child. And you never know because you never know what could trigger somebody. However, I think from what we saw in the book, the triggers were very consistent. It was him feeling jealousy over Lily potentially choosing another man, whether that person was
Well,
Atlas or someone else. Um, and that was a consistent trigger for him. It was always
right,
the same thing. It was
right.
always Atlas.
And now, as
So
it leaves off in this book, as it leaves off, she's running into Atlas's arms. He's going to be spending time with his kid.
yeah.
Who knows?
I'm just not I can see if potentially he like maybe that child kind of views Atlas as a father figure and says something to Ryle or something along those lines, potentially triggering him. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, where
Yeah,
they go from that. It's definitely possible.
it's open to
Um,
the possibility for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
definitely leaves it open ended, which is good for a reading standpoint. So we'll see
Hmm.
where it goes.
Yeah.
Um, so
So, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
that's okay. Don't do it again. What? Why do you think Lily, going back to her and Atlas as children,
Yeah.
why do you think Lily helped Atlas, and then continued to help him after people like that little bitch friend she had at school found out? I forget her
Yeah.
name. We'll call her Karen because she sounded like a Karen child.
She was a 100% Karen as a
80 or something.
teenager. I don't remember her name either, but it was definitely basically Karen. Um,
Karen it is.
yeah, I like this question. So I
Kid Karen.
I've thought about this quite a bit, and I definitely think it comes back to what you had discussed earlier, where she does kind of like to find these broken things, these broken people, and help them. And I think that she's kind of a head. It's funny because she is headstrong, which is I always thought kind of weird with her and Ryle, but with Atlas, she liked him and she wanted to help him, and she found something good in him that was worth saving, and she didn't care what anyone else thought. And you know, I think that was just part of her character. And I think it also made her feel good. And on the other hand, too, well, not on the other hand, but just in addition to that, she was really able to be close and open with Atlas. And he ended up being the only person that really knew or understood what she was struggling with at home. So I think that that made her bond with him even deeper because you know, she really only discusses the one friend that she had at school. We don't really know if she had other friends, but that friend had no idea what was going on in Lily's house. She had no idea what she was struggling with on a daily basis, and or at least we assume she couldn't understand. We also don't know what was going on in her house. Um, but the fact of the matter is they didn't disclose that to one another.
Right.
So, to find somebody, especially during those really impressionable ages, 15, 16 years old, you need somebody that can help you through that. And I think that that's why she wanted to help him, and she wanted to help him even more after people were giving her a hard time about it, because she
Yeah.
knew he needed the help and she did too. They just didn't know
Yeah,
it.
it's like the little bitchy friends or the little bitchy girl from high school, who always has something to say. She's jealous because she doesn't have a man of her own or whatever. Nobody wants her because she's
Man.
a Karen, well, a
Mm.
boy man, in high school. Hopefully not a man. That's weird. But like, don't do it. But like, yeah, it's just like, like when they were in the moment too, when they were holding hands on the bus, she didn't care. She's like, I
Yeah.
love this person. This person. I'm sharing something, an experience with this person who has a similar experience. And he is on a different, level. He's on my level. He's not on that level. And plus, she's like a
Yeah.
little judgy, character in the book. She's judgy. She's not going to be
Mhm.
like, oh, my dad hits my mom, because she'll be like telling everybody gossiping, and she's not going to
Oh yeah.
relate. And she's going to sit there and be
Yeah.
like, oh, that sounds horrible. She's not going to care. Like
Yeah.
as soon as she said, oh, I like, or she even mentioned that boy, what do you know about him? What do you know about Atlas? And she was like, oh, he smells like this or he does this. So,
Yeah.
who cares at the end of the day what her opinion was? If I was
Yeah.
Lily, I guess I would have felt the same way if I felt a way about this boy, knowing him, really knowing him.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
because it's easy to judge somebody like a book. It's easy to judge a book
Yep.
by its cover. It's same situation. So,
Yeah. And we all
yeah,
do it, even though we like to think that we don't, or we try not to. It's definitely something that we all do. Um,
yeah,
I also wanted
but
to
we're not
mention,
Karens.
no, no, please don't think we're Karens. Um,
Not up in
um,
here.
I think also Lily, and her love for gardening, I think that also demonstrates that same character trait as well. She likes to nurture things. She likes to help them grow and see them blossom into a beautiful new thing. And I think that's just part of who she is. And she saw that in Atlas and wanted to help him for that reason.
Oh, she
Um,
wants people to blossom into a lily.
yes, don't get me started on her name. Um,
She wants a bloom. Lily
no,
bloom.
stop. Lily bloomed. Okay. Um,
Lily blooms, blooms. Come to my shop. Oh man.
I
Sorry,
can't.
Hooves.
Yeah, but still. I mean, come on.
But
Lily
also,
bloomed.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, but while we're on the topic of Atlas, how do you compare and contrast her relationship with Atlas? I granted they were teenagers at the time, but still, with her relationship with Ryle.
Uh, Polar opposites. And
Yeah.
yes, I get that they're younger, but Atlas is still who he was. You
Yeah.
know. But then again, would Atlas have been who he was if he didn't go through that experience? I don't know.
Mm,
Because we don't know who he was before the experience. So that's what I would like to see that in the second book, so we can get familiar with
yeah.
him before the incident, before he was the
Yeah.
homeless kid.
Yeah. Oh.
I know. And it also, like, it changed my whole I don't know. It changes perspectives for thinking of the homeless, because you really don't
Mhm.
take into, not going back to Karen, but some people don't really take into consideration. People automatically think, oh, they're on the streets and that's their choice. Like, that's not everybody's
Mhm.
choice. That certainly wasn't this kid's choice. You know, he was kicked out of his home because his mom, for lack of a better phrase, was a piece of shit. So,
Yeah.
like, who kicks out your son? I just can't relate. I'm a mom of a son. I couldn't even imagine doing such a thing. But it goes back to the same thing about how she met somebody. She's choosing to be with a man who's abusing her child. And
Mhm.
then she chooses that man over her child. So I guess it just comes into in tune with this the theme of this book.
Mhm.
That you're a fool for
Yeah.
love, and sometimes you just don't see it, or you just don't want to see it. Like how the
Mhm.
mother said, oh, after a while, if I got a slap in the face, I'd be like, oh God, thank God it wasn't a beating. I can handle that.
Yeah.
you know Start
Yeah.
to get adjusted to that
Yeah.
lifestyle. And
Yeah,
I feel for
definitely.
anybody who's in those situations. I really do, because
Mhm.
it's hard looking in, not being in the situation, not being in that house in the window. You're being on the outside looking in,
Yeah.
looking in. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
I definitely think her relationship with Atlas was the perfect foil for her relationship with Ryle. And I did really enjoy that aspect of the book in terms of going back and forth uh, with her past and the present, because it gave us as readers that opportunity to kind of pick out these differences. Where Ryle was hurting her, Atlas was protecting her, and he
Yes.
protected her a few times in different ways. Um, not just physically, but also, he tried to protect her emotionally. And I think that there was a specific quote where she said, Atlas never tried to do anything that I wasn't comfortable with. So not only did she truly believe that he wouldn't push her limits, but he never even tried. And Ryle, in my opinion, from the very start, did nothing but push her limits. When they were first on the roof and she is talking to him and he starts touching her and she kind of says, I just kind of froze. She wasn't sure if she wanted it or not. She ended up kind of enjoying it, but he didn't ask permission. He didn't, wait to see if that was what she wanted or not. It was what he wanted. And so that's what happened. Um, and I liked seeing that difference in her relationship with Atlas, where everything was much more mutual. There was a lot more consent involved and just genuine emotion. And I think that Lily went into adulthood with honestly a really good understanding of what a really healthy relationship should be because she met Atlas. And I think Ryle kind of took that in a very superficial way and then twisted it, making her realize that not every relationship is going to be like the one with Atlas. Sometimes there is going to be a relationship like the one between my parents. And I think it was a little bit grounding for her because I do feel that she's a little idealistic. I think she kind of maybe is a hopeless romantic type that, she met Ryle and it was like this kind of like romantic thing, like, oh, we met on a rooftop. What are the odds? We meet again in my shop. It's a sign. Um, but you can't always live with that rosy outlook on life because sometimes it ends up being bad. And I think that by the end of the book, she kind of comes to terms with that idea but still understands that there is good because of Atlas. So I liked seeing all of those, contrasts throughout the novel.
So two things. One, I love your choice of words with Rosie because it goes back to the flowers. Secondly, wake up and smell the flowers, Lily. Um, Also, the second thing though, like we had said this, you and I in the past, we were talking about this. But I think like it represents, it's relatable to all of us, all readers, all women, especially maybe who have been in relationships multiple times, like multiple different types of relationships.
Mhm.
We tend to compare, relationships. So we'll compare like our first relationship, or to our
Yeah.
current one, or past relationships, like, oh,
Yeah.
like it goes back to like you're carrying certain baggage.
Yeah.
You don't choose violence. Like, I'm not gonna, beat up Doug, my husband, for something that one of my
I would
exes
hope
did.
not.
You know, well,
Yeah.
don't ask him. No. um No, it's just I don't know. It was relatable in a sense to me because
Yeah,
everybody has their own past and things that you relate or compare to or contrast to. So
absolutely. Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. I like at one point too, after she's decided to leave Ryle. She even, or at least while she was contemplating it during her pregnancy, she kind of says, like, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I had met Atlas a month beforehand. What would have changed in my life? And I kind of like that she reflected on that to say, like, oh, well, it could have been different. It could have been better. And now, I know better moving forward. And, unfortunately, bad experiences is still they're still experiences, and you still can learn and grow from them. It's just sometimes you don't realize it until you're on the other end of it, and you're out of it before you can kind of look back and say, okay, well, I learned this lesson now. Don't just
Right.
accept people sometimes because they say nice things, or in Ryle's case, weird things. I don't know. I still
Have a
don't get the
picture of you
appeal, but
on their wall.
yeah, I still like that. I still don't really get the appeal of Ryle, but um, I do
He
think
had
during the
scrubs,
first,
Alex, okay? He wore scrubs. That was his appeal.
yeah, I
Okay?
mean, great. I mean,
He showed up
everybody,
begging at her doorstep on his knees, but he had
bleh,
scrubs.
bleh, don't make me
I know.
vomit. I'm sorry. That whole scene makes me queasy. I hate it.
Because it's pathetic.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
pathetic.
See, that's why I don't understand how we made him. He was supposed to be, quote, likable.
Mm,
When
I
he was
know.
begging on his knees or when he
Yeah,
was beating up, the chair that was indestructible on the
I
roof,
know.
like, or when he
It
was
gave
saying,
me,
"Hey, let's get down. We just met." Like, when was
yeah.
he likable?
I don't know. The whole time from the very start, he gave me the ick, as like the young kids say these days, but like I got like major ick the whole time. I was like, I just
Young
don't like
kids.
you. But honestly, maybe that says something. As reading it as somebody in their 30s, maybe I would have felt differently reading this in my early 20s, which, Lily is only supposed to be 23. She's very young. She does have limited experiences. So maybe I find it hard to believe, but maybe at 23, I might have found him a little bit more charming. I don't know. Um, I don't know.
Oh,
I'll just leave that there.
instead of here's my nerdy instruction. Instead of being like, "Ooh, look at the scrubs," I would have been like, "This guy needs to get scrubbed out of my life." Bye. But whatever. Do you, Lily?
So I feel like we've touched on this topic a little bit so far, but did you find yourself kind of judging Lily a little bit at any point during the book? Yeah,
I think we made that clear.
I know.
Not in
And
the
I,
in the kid Karen on the bus form, but you know, in a way. I mean, like I said, it's easy as an outsider to give your
yeah,
judgments and to say, "Oh, you should have did this. Oh,
yeah,
you should have did that." But if you're the person in it, you're just blinded sometimes. Love is blind. Like sometimes you just don't see it. You see it or
yeah,
you just choose to walk away from seeing it. You don't want to. You close your eyes.
yeah.
Put the
I mean,
blinders on because you don't want it to be that.
I definitely did judge Lily, and I did feel bad about it because, I mean, working in social work, for viewers or listeners, if you don't know, I'm a social worker. I do work with people who are involved in domestic violence. It's very often, and I do empathize with them a lot, and I do understand why they choose to stay. My concern, honestly, in the book, or like my judgment in the book, was more so that I didn't get Lily's perspective, and I wish we'd just gotten more of it to understand her better in terms of why she did stay. I think it touched on it. It just didn't delve as deep into her decisions.
The
Um,
lily pool.
yeah, to like really help me understand where she was coming from the way that I would, talking to somebody in everyday life where I can really like understand because they can tell me exactly what was going on, which is just kind of funny because the whole book was from, her point of view, but I I definitely did judge her. I did learn I don't know if I learned so much about domestic violence. I've done a lot of training on it. So I do understand the cycle of abuse. I do understand the statistics, for anybody out there that doesn't know, women are statistically likely to take a man back or return back to an abusive relationship 7 times before they finally leave, whether that's through their own decision or
Wow.
because they end up, being killed or something along those lines. So I understood what Colleen Hooves was going for. I just don't know about the execution of it so much, which is I think some of where my judgment was coming from. Um
And it could be because her mom left in her personal life. Her
mhm,
mom left, which is great that her mom walked away when
yeah.
her kids were young,
Mhm,
which I get is the inspiration for Lily being like, bye, when my baby's born, bye.
yeah.
Um, but like, maybe she hasn't had a Ryle of her own. She is inspired. Lily is the character inspired by her as her childhood upbringing, but not
Mhm.
necessarily in her life. I don't know. Maybe Hooves did have a relationship that was parallel to her own mother, and she didn't walk away or she didn't realize it until it was too late or something. I just don't know. Um, but again, if she didn't, that could be the reason why we're lacking in certain areas to find out more about, why Lily's making these choices or why Lily's acting this way. And again, it could just
Mhm.
go back to like you said with your statistics. It's like sometimes you're in it and you just don't realize or you just don't see that you're becoming the statistic. You're becoming the person that you didn't want to be.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it is due to a lack of resources. You don't have somebody that you can go to. You don't have the money. You don't have a place to go. A lot of times in abusive relationships, you're very isolated from friends and family. So your only support system is your abuser. And that's intentional typically on the abuser's part. Um, but that's why, like, once again, I struggled a little bit with Lily because I was like, you do have people you can go to. You do have your mom. You do have Alyssa. She had other friends. She did have money. I mean, she was a successful businesswoman. She owned her own business. And I do think for Lily specifically, it just came down to love. She just really loved him and didn't want to believe that he was hurting her on on purpose because he wanted to hurt her, and she wanted to believe that he wasn't a bad person, or that he didn't mean to do these things. um but I do agree that I kind of felt like Colleen Hooves wanted to touch on domestic violence with a peripheral understanding of domestic violence without a real deep understanding of it. And I thought it was interesting, because there was the interview where she quoted saying that, her mother filed for divorce when she was 3. And she never understood how someone as independent as her mother could have stayed for so many years in an abusive relationship. So I do wonder if that's why she wanted to make Lily a little bit different than what we would might typically see in a domestic violence story. Somebody that does have resources and the ability to leave, but still chooses to stay. um, I just wish that sentiment had been explored a little bit more in the book itself.
I agree. And then what was her friend's name? It escapes me, but it started with a D. Her male
Devin,
friends.
Devin, I
Is it
believe.
Devin?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, that was the most interesting character of the book, and we don't see him as much. And I would have liked to explore more of him,
Yeah.
because at one point she simply forgets that he exists.
He's even
Like,
there. I know.
and at one point she does bring him up again. And she's like, "Well, I could tell him, but he met him once before. Like, who cares? That's your friends. Your friend will be there for you. Obviously, he's not going to be like, oh yeah, she's with me if he calls him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would
I
have
know.
liked her to run to him. I get that she had to run to Atlas for the book, but
Mhm.
would have I would have liked to have seen more of her friends because at one point it just becomes her closed off with everyone who's in Ryle's life. Oh, I'm gonna run to Alyssa, his sister. I'm gonna run to this one. Everyone that has to do with Ryle, but she forgets about her own people,
Well,
if that makes
yeah, I
sense.
mean, she had her mom, she had her friend Devin, she even had her roommate, I think her name was Lucy, which they were never close. But I also think, if she really needed to, she could have gone to her, even if it
Yeah,
was briefly or temporary. She
she
did
had
have
more choices
Atlas.
than Atlas, but she wanted to choose Atlas at
Yeah,
the end of the day.
yeah.
You know,
And I get it. I mean, personally, I mean, Atlas, she knows is going to protect her.
he's a
He
comfort.
he always has. He protected her as a child against her father and from, even seeing some of what was going on between her parents. and then he protected her again, at the restaurant when he he saw the injuries and automatically made the assumption that this is abusive, and he protected her then. And I think she knew, if I go to him, even if Ryle does show up, like, he's going to protect me. I can trust him to help me. And maybe she might not have felt that with her mom because, of her history. Um, and also she, had kind of like a strained relationship with her mother at times. It kind of went, back and forth. But I still think she could have I think the Hooves could have explored the friendships a little bit more. I think we should have seen a little bit more of, like, Lily as a person versus Lily as Ryle's girlfriend or wife. And
Right.
I don't think we got that so much. I think she tried. I think she threw in elements there that tried to give us that, and it just
Right. But they
it,
were dead ends.
yeah.
You know, I
It,
mean, yes, there's Lucy, but what do we her name's mentioned like four times, you know?
yeah.
And like he's literally at a party, this friends, and then he's mentioned one other time and that's
It's
it.
the it's the first and only time we see him, and even, like, during even during the party, she's barely talking to him. He literally goes off and does his own thing and is having a grand old time at this party, and she's like, "Oh, but Ryle." Um, so
I know. Hooves, we needed more of this friend. Okay? He was awesome. Best character. I was like, this character rocks. And then boom, he was a rock because he had no more existence. Like, I don't
I
know. Come on,
propose a
Hooves.
spin-off book on Devin and his own journey.
Is his name Devin?
Um,
I feel like it
I'm
isn't.
pretty sure it's Devin.
Well, we love him. No,
Alright.
no name. Okay. See, we don't even remember
Well,
his name, Hooves, because you didn't give enough of him. Okay.
I'm
This
pretty
is
sure
your fault,
I'm
Hooves.
pretty sure it was Devin because I remember it was spelled, like, a little different. It was like
Yeah, you're
Divin.
100% right. It is Devin. Chapter 7. Stop fidgeting, Devin says.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, fine. We
Trust
want
me.
the devs, Hooves. All right.
The devs.
Give us the devs.
Um,
Should have delved into the dev a
yeah,
little bit more.
definitely. So, did you have any more, thoughts or questions that you wanted to explore, or anything,
That we didn't say.
yeah, that we haven't really covered so far?
I mean, I'm looking forward to the next chapter, so to speak, with It Starts With Us, because now I know that that part of her life, she's put her firm foot down and said, this ends now.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see how her new beginning will be post
Mhm.
this. I'm interested in hearing more about Atlas's past. I know from just glancing at the book that we do get his voice in a narration in certain chapters, so I'm excited for that, and I'm hoping that
Mhm.
he'll have his own, whether they're letters or not, but his own letters. So we'll
Mhm.
get a glimpse into his past and help
Yeah.
understand him a little bit more. But as far as the book itself goes, like I love Atlas. I want more Atlas. I need to know more about Atlas. And maybe we'll get more Devon. I don't know. I don't know.
I doubt
I don't know
it.
if there's enough time.
I don't know if there'll be enough time. Um, yeah, I agree with you. In terms of the sequel, um, I do hope that we get more of a background on Atlas, get a little bit more history there. I'd like to get a little bit more history on Lily as well, and, like, her mom's history and that relationship. I do think we'll also see, and you had discussed this a little bit earlier, but Ryle's journey as a father, as a new father, kind of where that takes him and how that relationship with Lily is going to progress, because even if they're not in a relationship, they're tied together for the rest of their lives because they do have a child together. So I'm very
Right.
curious to see what happens. I am
Right.
curious to see how he's going to react to any type of relationship between Lily and Atlas, as well as, like you mentioned earlier, Atlas and the child, because that, might be a triggering thing for him. I'm curious to see if the book will touch on that. In terms of actual predictions, I don't think so. I think I think it's going to be more of a love story between Lily and Atlas. I think the heavy stuff is going to be put on the back burner a bit, but we'll see. I would love
We
to
will
be
see.
pleasantly surprised by the Hooves. So we will be reading that book
I'm
next.
interested.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So as far as this one goes, let's wrap it up with a scoop or a skip. Would you scoop it up if you had the chance to again? Would you recommend someone scoops it up, or would you skip?
I don't think I'd recommend this book. I I was not a huge fan. In terms of my rating, I would give it maybe 2 golden scoops. Um, it was
Two
alright.
golden scoops.
Yeah, I mean, it was an easy read. You could definitely blow through it pretty fast. I just personally wasn't a huge fan of the book. I thought that, um to just touch on writing style a little bit, I thought there was a lack of substance for something that was a very heavy topic, and I thought it could have been done in a more profound way, and that really held me back. I also felt very little connection to the characters. I probably felt most connected to Atlas, and he wasn't even a main character. You know, he's kind of like basically a side character.
A
Um,
side dish.
yeah, I mean, I hated reading about Ryle. Lily, I just she was just kind of forgettable to me.
Right. And Devin
So
was an appetizer, you know.
so that's where I stand on this. But if interested in exploring the topic, then I do suggest maybe this might be for you, especially if you're not prepared to get into something too heavy, or you are scared maybe, or it is something that's triggering for you, but you still would like to, read it. I know it's very popular right now. Um, I'd definitely give it a shot. But for me personally, it's a meh. It's a skip.
Okay. Um, so I'm gonna give it three golden skips.
Oops.
Skips, scoops. I'll give it three golden scoops. Skips. I'm gonna say that it's for now it's a skip for me as well. Obviously because I was giving it skips. Um, three clicks of skips. But yeah, no, I mean, I want to read It Starts With Us. I'm hopeful that because I seen reviews that it was better than the first, so I'm hopeful that um, the whole exploration of Lily and Atlas's future, knowing their past, I'm hoping that it'll be its own little love story that I'm gonna get sucked into, like I did with the letters with them.
Mhm.
But as far as this book goes, I was left wanting. I was wanting more Devon. No, I'm kidding. I was left wanting. I wanted more, more interaction with the mom. I thought that it could have been dived into, or dove, whatever the word is. Don't
Delved.
judge me, people. Delved. Devon's. I don't know. It could have been.
It could have
It
been
could have been
Devoned.
more. Yeah, it could have been Devon too. More explored. But I was left wanting. I was left, with a lot of things. I didn't connect to the characters. I did not like Ryle. I didn't find him likable.
Mhm.
Lily annoyed me at a lot of times, but you know, no disrespect to anybody who's been in that situation. I don't mean that in that way. I'm just saying, I would have maybe been more connected to her if she was more maybe relatable to me. I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm not really sure what you think. I think you know what I'm trying to say. Like I just didn't
Yeah.
connect to the characters.
Yeah.
So for that, it has to get a three.
Mhm.
If I'm connecting to the characters, maybe I could have given it four. Four for you, Glen Coco. You go, Glen Coco. Um, but in this case, sorry, Hooves, you get a three from me. We'll see where the next one goes.
Yeah.
We'll see where the next Hooves tread.
Oh my god, no.
Shut up, you love it.
No, you're in a timeout. That's
Um,
it. Um,
so we get two golden skips from us. Two golden skips.
yeah.
Um, Sorry, you will get a lot of Christmas or holiday related things because we just love it and we're always festive. So I will listen
Uh,
to Christmas music right now. Okay.
I do love me some Christmas music.
Right. Join us for our next episode on Thursday, August 17th, when we discuss some more about the book, the recipes we made, and play some games. We'll also be including a get to know us segment for you to get to know your hosts just a little bit better.
Our next book review will be on the Hooves, Kalim's sequel to It Ends With Us, which is called It Starts With Us. That episode will air on Tuesday, August 22nd. So join us then for our thoughts on the sequel. For anyone who's just tuning in, this is what you can expect from our podcast. We'll be releasing new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, so be sure to check out our socials for updates and bonus content. You can find us on Instagram at bookswithcooks_podcast, on TikTok at bookswithcooks_podcast, on Twitter at bookswithcooks, and you can visit our website at bookswithcooks.wixsite.com. That's WIXSITE.com.
We encourage you to reach out to us with thoughts, ideas, questions, and feedback. You can also email us at bookswithcooks@gmail.com. Give us a follow on Goodreads for our full book reviews at Jess Books with Cooks and Alex Books with Cooks. We'll include this information in our podcast bio. If no one told you today, you're important and valued. You belong here. You're doing great, and we believe in you.
Now let's turn the page and put a fork in it.
Because we're done with this one.